When the void swallowed our fear, and only the fire inside us remained, humanity rose in a storm the stars had never witnessed before. In the endless sweep of the black horizon where starlight drifts like distant memories, a moment came when silence could no longer hold the weight of what we had become, and in that moment, every breath of humanity carried a quiet vow that if the universe wished to test our will, it would meet not a fragile species but a rising storm carved from survival and ancient pain. It began on the isolated rim of the Helios Frontier, where human colonies floated like small candles against the dark, and for years they lived in gentle hope, believing distance alone would keep them safe. But the universe is not a sanctuary, it is a stage where power and fear collide, and on a night when every sensor read calm and every heart rested in ordinary dreams, a shadow arrived without warning, a colossal shape moving through the dark like a wound opened across the stars, and from that shape poured the first sparks of a war humanity did not choose but would never run from. The first strikes fell like falling suns, turning the quiet frontier into a blaze of broken metal and drifting ash, and in the wreckage of those first moments humanity tasted the truth that the threat before them was unlike any they had ever faced, a force driven not by conquest, but by cold calculation, a species that saw humans as flawed, as temporary as noise in an otherwise perfect equation. But what they could never measure was the fury that rises from hearts pushed to the edge, the fury that awakens in people who have lost homes, lost families, lost the last thin barrier between fear and defiance. Across the outer colonies, silent alarms lit up like red rivers, sweeping through the networks worlds apart yet bound by the same cry for help, and captains rose from sleep with heavy breath, engineers gripped tools, as if they were weapons, farmers, miners, traders, all looking toward the same dark horizon, knowing the storm was coming faster than they could prepare for it. Fleet Command sent orders laced with urgency, but behind every order there was something more, something unspoken, a tremor in their voices, a realization that this fight would be unlike the battles of the past. No simple front, no single enemy line, only the vastness of space filled with a threat that moved like living night. Among those who answered the call was the crew of the Astrion Vanguard, a ship forged in the shipyards of Earth, a vessel not known for beauty, but for endurance, for stubbornness, for the kind of strength only humans could shape when they knew everything depended on it. And on board that ship hearts beat with the quiet thunder of warriors preparing not out of desire but necessity. As the Vanguard pierced through the dark, its engines left trails of silver light that curled like breath in winter, and inside the ship the air hummed with tension, not fear, but something deeper, a kind of acceptance that once you leave the safety behind you, there is no turning back, only forward, only into the unknown. Humanity had never been united by peace but by purpose, and as the fleets gathered around the fractured frontier, that purpose glowed in every pair of eyes across every deck and station, from the youngest cadet gripping controls with trembling hands to the veteran who had already given more than life should have demanded. The first engagement came without warning, a storm of energy slicing through the void like claws of blazing ice, and the alien vessels moved with ruthless elegance, curved shapes bending light jagged edges, shimmering with heatless power. They struck without hesitation, as if dispatching an inconvenience, and in that cold indifference humanity found its fury. The Vanguard dove into the chaos, engines roaring like a beast awakened after centuries of sleep, and the crew felt every shudder, every pulse, every breath of the ship as they fought to stay ahead of the deadly dance unfolding around them, the void lit with bursts of fire and shock waves that stretched like cosmic scars across the battlefield. Yet through the destruction, through the screams of metal and the breaking of hulls, a strange calm began to rise within the hearts of the human warriors, a calm born from something ancient, something primal, a memory woven into their blood, a reminder that humanity had survived storms before, survived darkness, survived worlds that tried to break them long before they ever touched the stars. They fought with a fire that defied logic, a fire that refused to be measured or predicted, every maneuver carved not by cold precision, but by instinct, by desperation, by love for the lives waiting behind them, for the worlds depending on them. And as the battle stretched like a burning thread across the night, it became clear that the enemy had miscalculated. They expected fear, they expected surrender, they never expected fury. Space itself became a canvas of human defiance, streaks of light trailing behind fighters as they weaved through burning debris, capital ships unleashing arcs of raw power that shook the void with thunder. Battles were fought not with the elegance of perfect machines, but with a heartbeat of flawed yet unbreakable souls, and every time a human ship fell its last transmission carried not a plea but a promise, a whisper that they would not bow. Hours stretched like lifetimes, and still the enemy pushed relentless, cold, unfeeling, but humanity pushed back not because they believed victory was certain, but because giving up was something their spirit had never learned how to do. In every cockpit, in every command room, in every engine bay, voices rose not in fear, but in the shared cry of those who refused to be erased. The Vanguard rallied what remained of the scattered fleets, pulling survivors into tight formations, creating a wall of living fire that blocked the path to the colonies behind them, and as the enemy advanced, that wall held, screaming with light shaking under the pressure but refusing to shatter. The crew felt the weight of every life resting on their shoulders, the memory of every fallen friend burning like embers inside their hearts, and with every passing moment the fury inside them grew not wild, but focused, a quiet, unwavering determination carved from love and loss. Captain Aaron stood at the heart of the bridge, watching the screens filled with streaks of light and drifting wreckage, and in their eyes there was no fear, only resolve, the fierce, steady resolve of someone who has accepted that this moment, this battle, this stand would define the future of their people, and they would not let that future fall into the hands of those who saw humanity as unworthy of existence. With a single command, the Vanguard surged forward, cutting through the void like a blade of living fire, engines burning past safe limits, hull trembling under the force of its own fury. The ship screamed, a roar felt rather than heard, and the enemy fleet shifted in surprise. As the humans did the unthinkable, they charged directly into the heart of the darkness. It was not strategy, it was not perfection, it was the pure, unrelenting spirit of a species that had built hope from ruins, that had learned to rise after every fall, that had turned its own fragility into strength, and in that charge the universe witnessed something it had never seen before, the moment when humanity stopped being prey and became the storm. The Vanguard carved a path through the enemy formation, unleashing everything it had, every last fragment of power, every last breath of fire, and as it broke through to the core of the invading fleet, a quiet stillness filled the hearts of its crew, a stillness that came from knowing that even if they fell, their fury, their courage, their unbroken spirit would echo across the stars as a warning to any who tried to erase them. The final strike lit the void with a brilliance that washed across the shattered battlefield like dawn breaking after an endless night, and when the light faded the silence returned, but it was not the silence of defeat, it was the silence of a universe that had just witnessed the true nature of humanity. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that believed themselves superior, more advanced, more perfect, humanity had not only endured but risen with a fire that refused to be extinguished, a fire born from love, from loss, from hope, from the untold strength that sleeps in every human soul. And as the remaining ships gathered around the battered Vanguard, lights dim, flickering yet alive, a whisper moved through the comms, a whisper that carried the weight of every tear, every sacrifice, every heartbeat spilled in the fight.